Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Monsters Multiclass. I'm Kevin Odie.
I'm Jared Bornagle.
And I'm Will Melton.
And on this episode, we are looking at all of the fighter changes in Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. So pull up a chair and stick around for a while.
For the entire episode length, please.
That would be ideal. Maybe go back and double watch things so when we look at our analytics, we could get the nice kind of chemical boost of, oh man, that's like over 100% attention.
All right, welcome everybody. We're going to start today by talking about the optional class features of the fighter from Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. And the first one is around some new fighting styles that they get at first level, some new options. So a lot of what we saw is similar. We'll see a couple of them are similar to the Ranger that we have already discussed, but they do get a couple more options that are unique to the fighter class. I admittedly haven't looked to see if the Paladin has them, but I'm assuming no for at least one. So blind fighting and thrown weapon fighting, those are both available for Rangers. We already talked about them. If you want to hear about those fighting styles a little bit more in depth, as well as the Ranger, Kevin, you can put a annotated link. I think it'll be over there. Mm-hmm. The first one is Interception. That's actually new. And this is when a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you with an attack. You can use your reaction to reduce the damage the target takes by 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus to a minimum of 0 damage. And you must be wielding a shield or a simple or martial weapon to use this reaction. That's the first time I've ever seen them say it can be 0 damage. But how would that even happen if it's 1d10 plus your proficiency? That's never negative.
No, reduce it to a minimum.
Oh, I'm so sorry. That makes more sense. Yeah, you can reduce it to 0. Now I'm here for it. So this is really similar to the protection ability. Mm-hmm. That's one where you have to have a shield. This one you can have a simple or martial weapon or a shield. But the protection one is basically you can impose disadvantage on attack within 5 feet of you. Where this one you're just directly reducing the damage. So they fill a similar niche, but this one is more like the safe option because disadvantage still has the possibility of hitting. This is guaranteed reducing some damage.
Right, and by possibly a decent amount, especially at level 1.
Yeah.
I mean, you could cancel an entire blow at level 1. First few levels, really. It's, yeah, and if you don't have a shield, like you're using a two-handed weapon or two-weapon fighting, but you still kind of want to be that sort of protector, this is obviously a really good option. If you had a shield, I guess I'm not sure what I would pick between protection or whatever it's called and interception.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on how much risk you want to take. Again, because that protection, you might just impose disadvantage and they roll pretty high both times anyways. It's higher risk, higher reward, though, because if you do get it to just completely negate, that's obviously much better than reducing it by 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus. So
yeah,
I would probably go with that if I had a shield. But I
protection.
Probably go with protection over this interception. But I wish that this was an option earlier, because when I was playing a paladin, I was using a two-handed weapon, and I multi-classed into fighter, and I got a second fighting style, and I just kind of shrugged. I was like, well, I guess I'm just taking defense, because that gives me +1 to AC, and I don't really have many other options. This would have been a lot more fitting, so I'm happy for that possibility.
Right. So at lower levels, I think interception might be better, because effect 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus, a lot of times effectively will be the same as negating an attack.
True.
Because they're both the same thing of when on an attack, so like you're not going to negate getting hit by like a fireball or something like that. When a creature you can see that hits targets other than you. Okay, so the creature has to be within 5 feet of you. All right, I should just have protection pulled up. Okay, protection is when a creature you can see attacks a target other than you that was within 5 feet of you. Where interception, okay, so it's like a weird kind of nuanced thing, but it does matter. With interception, the attacker needs to be within 5 feet of you. And I think the intent is you're like parrying it away with your weapon or whatever. So if somebody is shooting your ally that's right next to you with like a longbow, you cannot intercept it. When a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you.
Right, and that has come up before.
Wait, it's worded differently, but I think it's the same thing.
They do this. Every book is they change core wording that we're used to.
So protection reads, when a creature you can see attacks a target other than you that is within 5 feet of you, you can use your reaction to pose disadvantage on the attack roll. So the ally, the creature you are protecting, needs to be within 5 feet of you. Am I reading that correct?
That's what we've decided in our home game, and I think so, because we've had this conversation outside of the podcast before.
Right. And then interception, when a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you with an attack, you can use your reaction to reduce the damage.
That reads the same to me. I mean, obviously the language is different, but I think that's the same intent, is you are within 5 feet of the enemy. Or of the... Jeez. You're within 5 feet of the creature getting attacked.
Thematically, it makes sense for Kevin's interpretation.
To, like, literally intercept it?
Intercepting, like, it's... I don't know.
Yeah, so if interception, when a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you, so is the creature that you could see having to be within 5 feet of you, or is the target of that creature?
The target.
I don't know.
Because it says, when a creature you can see hits a target other than you within 5 feet of you with an attack. So the subject of that is the target.
Okay.
You guys, come on, let's break down the sentence structure. Where's the sentence mapping?
Okay, so that's effectively the same.
Yeah, it's just probably more clear as we're sitting here confused over it. But that was most likely the intention, is that people were confused over Protector, as we were in the past, and now it's making us confused about Interception. So, perfect.
Yeah, that's what they do. It's like, this was confusing wording. Let's not improve that at all.
When really all they have to do is just say, like, this is what we meant by it. This is, a little unclear, but we're going to stick with it so we don't screw up anybody further.
All right. So my original point, though, at lower levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, 1d10 plus your proficiency bonus will probably negate the majority of any attack against a PC anyways, because health is just not that high. As you get higher, the proficiency bonus is not going to scale with how much health is going up, so the 1d10 plus proficiency bonus at like level 20 is like almost nothing. It's like with what you're going to be hit by.
It reminds me a lot of the Heavy Armor Master feat, where at low levels it's amazing because you get that -3 damage on every hit. As you said, basically negating most damage that comes through. But then by higher levels, might not be as important. I'll still stand by that it just is good, because 3 damage over the course of an entire campaign every time you're hit, as long as it's non-magical damage, really does add up a lot. And I'm sure that this would as well, to the point that if you did like an experiment where you literally had like either feat and said like, okay, well, if it was disadvantage, it would have negated this much. And if we did this and negated the damage through interception, how much would it reduce? Honestly, the numbers are probably going to come out to be maybe similar. I mean, that's just pulling, the concept
I
out of
didn't
my
do the math, but if you did do the math, it'd probably support me.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, this is one. Like, if I was playing a fighter that had a shield, I would probably start out with interception, and then later on swap it over to protection, which is a thing they added. We'll get to in a bit here.
Yeah, that's probably a good idea, because you can't do that.
Yeah, and if you didn't have a shield, then you're kind of stuck with it, which is fine. I mean, it's not bad. It just becomes less useful the higher you get.
All right, next one is Superior Technique. So this gives you one maneuver of your choice from the Battlemaster archetype, and one superiority die that is a d6. This doesn't ever go up. You just get a d6, and you get to use it, or you get that dice back on a short rest or long rest. So this is like a really watered down version of the feat. There's like a Battlemaster feat where you get, I think, 2 options and 3 superiority die or something like that. I don't
That was just one.
really think this is a great option, though. For an entire fighting style, it gives you the choice to potentially do something once every short rest, whereas every other fighting style is about every time you attack. If we look at thrown weapon fighting, that's +2 damage to every ranged weapon attack that's thrown. That's a ton of damage over the course of a campaign, whereas adding a single maneuver per short rest that has the potential to fail is nowhere near as good or interesting, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's pretty limited, as you brought up. Everything else pretty much happens almost every single turn. This gives you a once per short rest ability.
I could see picking it if you had a second fighting style and you just didn't really care for the +1 AC because it didn't fit your style. And sure, okay, I'll go with this. But realistically, I see Battlemaster choosing it more than anything because they don't really care about the additional D6, but one new maneuver could be useful as just more options to play with. Because it's not like you can only use that maneuver with that one die.
Right. That's true. But would it be... Like, I mean, I've played a Battlemaster, and I found a lot of maneuvers just went unused. Like, you end up getting a lot of them.
Yeah. No, I think
and
that's
I'd still
totally
rather
fair.
have, like, +1 to AC, even if that's more boring, and it's going to come up more. Or, you know, the Great Weapon Fighter, where you could reroll 1s and 2s and things like that.
Yeah.
Man, if only they added more maneuvers.
I was just about to say, I think that with some of the maneuvers they added, it might be more enticing to take some of those, but I think you're still right. In actual play, you're going to wind up sticking with maybe 2 or 3 of them consistently. You know, your Trip and your Riposte that get used as often as possible. And then you have your other ones that are like, oh, maybe every once in a while this will come up and I'll have a use for it.
Right. And the feat you were talking about is Martial Adapt, and that's just one superiority die. You pick 2 maneuver options, and you get 1 D6 die.
Yeah, that's just not that good. That's a horrible feat. Is that a half feat? Do you get +1 to strength or dex? That's a terrible feat. So yeah, that's that one. Last new fighting style is Unarmored Fighting. Sorry, not unarmored. Unarmed Fighting. So this is... your unarmed strikes can deal bludgeoning damage equal to 1d6 plus your strength modifier on a hit. If you aren't wielding any weapons or a shield, you make the attack roll with a d8 instead of a d6. Or sorry, sorry. The damage roll is with a d8, not a d6. And also, at the start of each of your turns, you can deal 1d4 bludgeoning damage to one creature grappled by you.
It's an interesting one. I mean, just making unarmed viable for something that's not a monk. Fine, great. I have no issues with that. It's not like making it ridiculously overpowered. And a monk could still do a lot more with unarmed strikes than this gives you. So that's fine. It doesn't feel like it's stepping on their toes too much. The free 1d4 bludgeoning damage on a grappled creature is kind of crazy. Like, you don't roll for that. It just happens. At the start of your turn, you just apply it.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a bonus action or anything.
And it doesn't even require you to be unarmed. It's actually totally unrelated to that. Which I thought was kind of interesting. You could have a two-handed weapon. I guess you wouldn't be able to grapple and hold a two-handed weapon and attack with it. Maybe. But either way, you could grapple something, have a weapon in hand, and if you want to do that grappler build, this is a must-have fighting style choice. Otherwise, I don't really think it's that interesting. Yeah, you're right, it makes unarmed attacks viable, but I can accomplish the same thing with a club in my hand. That does 1d6 bludgeoning, so it's just a pure flavor choice when it comes to the damage.
It also scales like absolute crap, because you'll never be able to upgrade your fists, so to speak.
Right.
They'll never be magical. That's a big thing for monks. I always have magic weapons right here.
Yeah. I got my magic weapons right here.
And that starts to matter a lot in the later game.
Yeah, that's a great
point. This is kind of an interesting way to get two-weapon fighting without the weapon.
It sucks, though, because You know what fists aren't considered? Light. You can't make a bonus action attack with your
Is
fists.
that true?
Yeah.
That's just monks?
Yeah, it's just monks. That's an entirely monk-specific feature. It has to be put in the monk wording that you can make a bonus attack on Unarmed Strike. Because fists aren't light.
Is that like an official ruling?
I kind of remember that, but that's not true.
Does it even
They're
does
the
it even
lightest
list?
weapon in the game.
They
weigh
you would
nothing.
think, yeah. But since that's at least how I would understand it. No, I didn't look up to see if it's like a specific thing that has been ruled. But with unarmed strikes, again, not being considered a weapon, you need the light property in order to make a bonus attack with a light weapon. And monks specifically have a feature that allows them to make a bonus action unarmed strike. To me, I can't think of a single reason why you'd be allowed, rules as written, to make a bonus action unarmed strike with another class.
Well, it wouldn't get the. It would just be stuck to whatever it is, the 1+ strength or whatever, or if you have this fighting style, the D6 or D8, and you're never able to add in like your strength.
Right, so you wouldn't get your damage modifier.
Right. Unless you take a feat, I think, that allows you to do that, or it's another fighting style.
Another fighting style, yeah, 2 weapons.
Yeah. Right. In terms of like saying fists aren't light, are fists listed like in any of the equipment table?
Nope.
They weren't.
It's just not said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would take it as they're light and you can do a bonus action attack.
That's fine, but you're stepping outside of Raw, Kevin. And you know what happens when you do that? Jeremy Crawford's gonna bust in your door like the Kool-Aid man and
Just
say, "Oh
read
no!"
off like a tweet of his.
just
Just calmly reading. Yeah, and on September 7th of 2016, I explained that fists aren't light.
he would not say it that clearly. He'd say, "Fists do not have the light property," and that would be it. And he'd say, "Well, does that mean that you can't make a bonus action attack with them?"
I have
He'd say,
spoken.
Yeah, it just disappears into a hole. I respect it. The living embodiment of read the fucking manual. So yeah, I mean, that's, unless we find something different, hey, there's a good thing for you all to leave your answer in the comments, whether or not you think fists can be used to make bonus action strikes if you're not a monk. Make sure to cite your sources. You will be graded.
I did find the unarmed strike section within the player handbook. It just doesn't say anything. Instead of using a weapon to make a melee weapon attack, you can use an unarmed strike, punch, kick, headbutt, or similar forceful blow, none of which count as weapons. On a hit, it deals 1+ your strength mod, you're proficient. And then, 2-weapon fighting. When you take the attack action and attack with a light melee weapon you're holding in one hand, you could use bonus action with a different light melee weapon that you're holding in the other hand. Yeah, I mean, it pretty clearly says these do not count as weapons in 2-weapon fighting. Even if you ignore the light thing, it requires a melee weapon.
Well, fists are considered a melee weapon, kind of. That's like a whole...
But it specifically
love that
says
that's the
none of
new
which
rule.
count
It's
as weapons.
They don't count as weapons, but kind of they do.
It's like, oh no, they don't count as weapons with a capital W. Sorry.
If it has a thrown property, you could throw it instead of making a melee attack.
Which does not
Actually,
apply
I didn't
to
know
fists.
that.
I can confidently
No.
say that is not a thing that applies to your fist.
I think artificers get
Yeah.
a rocket fist.
Unless you're...
The armor, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it doesn't say anything else. That's really confusing. I would allow it, but whatever. That's me.
and honestly, if somebody was basing their entire character around having unarmed strikes, and as I just said, you can accomplish the same thing with a club in your hand to get 1d6 damage, or a quarterstaff two-handing it for 1d8, I probably would allow it as well, because they're going to fall behind very quickly. And Will, as you were saying that there's no way to make them magical, I will say that, of course, that's rules as written. You know that if a person's going to be going for this, the DM is going to be considering things like magical brass knuckles or gauntlets or things like that. A ring that makes your fist magical. Whatever.
Right.
So rules is written totally right. There's no magic item that just makes fists magical.
This is so dictated by flavor. It's just not mechanically optimized at all. But if you do want to be a strength punchy character, this is it. This is what you can do.
Right. Yeah, and then the last sentence, the whole thing, apply 1d4 bludgeoning damage to creatures grappled by you. If you are going for that grapple build, yes, I mean it's could be pretty powerful. Just a free 1d4 damage.
Does it
every turn?
Yeah, it's something. It doesn't feel that powerful. Again, the scaling aspect. At low levels, sure, 1d4 every round, great. By the time you get to 7th level, you're not really going to notice that much.
But if you're concerned about a damage build, but wanting to grapple, what other options would you have? Like archery, like thrown weapons has +2 damage to a thrown weapon. I mean, that's the average of a d4.
Yep.
Great weapon fighting, reroll 1s and 2s. It could be kind of swingy, obviously, but I think that shows to also not be like a huge boost in damage, because you could also re-roll a 1 or a 2, and then you're stuck with it anyways. And especially if you have like a greatsword where it's 2d6s.
Yeah, if I was concerned about damage, I wouldn't be taking this fighting style anyways. So it is nice if you are going for a grappler build, which people have been doing regardless of this fighting style. Mm-hmm. Now you have something to make that a little better. So
right.
Free damage. You're right. I'll take it.
Yeah, I'm saying over time it would add up.
Hey, that sounds like something I said 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, like the -3.
Yeah. All right, so that is everything around the new fighting styles. Honestly, I think good additions. Nothing that's super stand out.
Which is as it should be. I mean, they're all interesting choices that mesh in with the rest of them. Except for maybe blind fighting. But we talked about that in the Ranger one, where it just feels like it's a really, really super situational. But it makes a really kind of specific, flavorful character viable, I guess. So that's probably the main.
Right. So then next is a 4th level optional feature, the Martial Versatility. Whenever you reach a level in this class that grants the ability score improvement feature, you can do one of the following as you shift the focus of your martial practice into law practice. So one is replaces a fighting style you know with another fighting style available to fighters. And then if you know any maneuvers from the Battlemaster archetype, you can replace one maneuver you know with a different maneuver. We've brought this up every single time, where these are things that most DMs are probably going to be pretty nice about and say, yeah, sure, switch it if that's not working, but always good to have this stuff codified.
Yep. Yeah, not much more to say on it.
Next up are those new maneuver options, and they added a ton for the Battlemaster here. Actually kind of surprised, because as you had mentioned, Kevin, the Battlemaster already has a ton of options. The fact that they felt the need to add like 7 more.
Right. And yeah, and especially because the Battlemaster is generally considered the strongest fighter subclass.
Yeah.
It's like, here's more to them. I mean, it is kind of low-hanging fruit. You know, you're not like rewriting having to rewrite a class, swap out features. It's just like, here's just more options. And people always like more options, so I get it.
Stupid people and their desire for more options. Those aren't the options I wanted.
I want less options.
You might want to play a different game then. I don't think they're going to be taking options out of 5th edition anytime soon.
Just wait till 5.5 and they remove half the stuff we talked about.
All right, so the first new option is Ambush. This is when you make a dexterity, stealth check, or an initiative roll, you can expend a superiority die and add the die to the roll, provided you aren't incapacitated.
It's definitely pretty different than any other of their maneuvers. Almost all of them are stuff that happens in combat.
Right, like on an attack or before an attack, when attacked, things like that.
Yeah, make someone else attack. Make somebody attack you, things like that. This could obviously be used outside of combat.
I think that's what I like about it, is that it can be used somewhat outside of combat, the stealth, also the initiative roll. But you talked about how usually you are picking 2 of your core maneuvers, and then you just keep getting more and more and more. And every single time you're like, but I have what I need in combat. So I like the direction they went with not just this fighting style, not just this maneuver, but a couple of others where it gives you an option to use them out of combat. Lets the class feel a bit more flavorful as well, because instead of just being the on-the-field tactician, it meshes more in line with that level 7 ability that's generally pretty worthless, where you're supposed to feel like you can just scout out things and you know the best move for everything, and you are a tactician on and off the battlefield. So I like it. I think that that's a good addition and a good different use for it.
Yeah, and it gives you more ways to just flavor this fighter. If you want to give them stealth and not put them in heavy armor and things like that, because laying ambushes fits very well for that tactician.
Yeah, and it can make up for being awful at stealth with heavy armor, because maybe you don't stealth that much, but when it comes up, you're like, yeah, I'll use one of my superiority dice and just make sure I'm not holding back the entire party because I'm clunky.
Right. All right. Next is bait and switch. When you are within 5 feet of a creature on your turn, you can spend a superiority die and switch places with that creature, provided you spend at least 5 feet of movement and the creature is willing and isn't incapacitated. It does not provoke an opportunity attack. Then you roll that superiority die until the start of your next turn. You or the creature, which is your choice, gains a bonus to AC equal to the number rolled.
Yeah, adds a lot of tactics. Is just overall pretty solid. I like this one. I think you'd have to be really thinking about the specific scenario, whether or not you want to give yourself the AC or the person you moved. But great kind of going with that protector role.
So I think it's maybe a little too situational. Because, I mean, since you're just swapping within 5 feet, it really comes down to how the initiative order is. So let's say the wizard who's getting beat up on by a martial enemy, and so you run over to do this, and you stand on the backside of the wizard, so you're 10 feet from the enemy, and you do this and swap places, and now you're the one within 5 feet of the enemy, and the wizard's 10 feet away and protected from the attack. But if that enemy goes before the wizard, they could just take a 5-foot step diagonally and get back to the wizard without provoking an opportunity attack to you. And so for that to be viable, the wizard would have to go before this enemy goes and then have an option and a path to get away. And it's not saying that will never come up, but it's just really situational, it feels like.
That's fair. But in that situation where you're saying that the enemy would get to go again before the wizard anyways, that's just when you give them the AC bonus. And that's where you're getting the benefit out of it. Less about the movement there and more about the fact that they'll have much higher AC, and that lasts until the start of your next turn. So even when they do get to go, they may disengage more freely because you just gave them plus 10 to their AC.
Yeah. I thought there was a maneuver already that essentially you could give your AC to someone.
There's one that when you move, you can add superiority die to your own AC, and it lets you move throughout the battlefield.
Right.
But I don't think there's one for giving a friendly combatant AC. So that's what I view more as the bonus here, is being able to give them the AC. Now, I think you're right, because the situation that you described is probably most common, that the enemy will be able to just get to the person that you switched with. So probably not going to be giving yourself the AC bonus that often, but in the scenarios where you know that you're giving them an opportunity to run, you're going to be happy you could give it to yourself. So that's why I'm saying I like the tactical aspect of it. You're right. It is a bit too situational, though.
Yeah, and there's also... I have the whole maneuver list up now. There are already maneuvers that essentially accomplish what this is trying to do, like the goading attack. When you hit a creature... Yeah, so you choose after you hit a creature, expend a superiority die to attempt to goad the target attacking you. Add superiority die to the damage roll. The target makes a wisdom saving throw. On a fail, they have disadvantage on any attack that's not against you. Or you have maneuvering attack when you hit a creature with a weapon attack, expend the superiority die. And you can move a comrade to a more advantageous position. So again, you add the die to the attack's roll, choose a friendly creature. The creature can then use its reaction to move up to half its speed without provoking opportunity attacks.
Yeah.
From the target of your attack.
Those are definitely pretty similar. The only thing that I'll add is that this one doesn't have to be during your turn. You can do it whenever. It doesn't take a reaction. It doesn't take anything. It just takes 5 feet of movement. So that at least is interesting and different.
Weird.
I think you have to use the movement.
You have to use the movement,
which means it has to be on your turn.
Yeah.
Can you not move outside of your turn?
Correct.
No. I mean, I think about how that would work.
It actually says, when you're within 5 feet of a creature on your turn. That's specifically stated. Okay, so, it is still nice that it doesn't take a reaction or bonus action or something, but yeah, there's some other options.
I'll say this, it does provide a lot of AC for potentially a lot of attacks. If you have a lot of targets, and this is not a situation you can run out of so well, I mean,
right.
It goes up to plus 12. That can be a comical level of AC for some people.
Even at low levels, with it going up to a D6, and I think at level 5 it goes up to a D8, so that's pretty early on. 8 AC is nothing to scoff at. That is a huge reduction in potential damage.
Absolutely.
But you're saying there's others.
And it could also be 1 AC.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, that's...
Boy, wouldn't that be a bummer? But it would happen, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
1 every 8 times.
Scaling up to 1 every 12 by 18th level.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm kind of torn on it.
That's fair. It's not the worst one I've seen. How about that?
True. All right. Next, we got Brace. When a creature you can see moves into the reach you have with the melee weapon you're wielding, you can use your reaction to spend his superiority die and make an attack against the creature using that weapon. If it hits, you add the die to the weapon's damage roll.
So what's the feat that lets you do this? Is that Polar Master? Of course.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's kind of... Yeah, it's a way to get the most annoying part of Polar Master. And then just, so you could do that, and then just take the Sentinel feat. Yeah, that's the really, like, annoying build. You take 2 feats, Polar Master. Yeah, I know you remember. Polar Master and Sentinel. Polar Master, among other things, allows you to make an opportunity attack when a creature enters your reach, which is going to be 10 feet. Sentinel drops a creature speed to 0 when they're hit by an opportunity attack from you. So a creature who has just like a standard 5-foot reach melee range runs in, you stop them dead in their tracks 10 feet out. They're wasted their turn. You've done damage to them just for the cost of your reaction, and then you could run away and just repeat. It's very annoying build, but it has a 2 feet tax, which is kind of high.
Yep.
But now you could just take this option.
I don't think
Brace.
this actually would combine with Sentinel because it's not explicitly an opportunity attack.
Oh, you're right.
It
does not use the words opportunity attack.
Everything in common with one, but it isn't.
So you're saying
good catch.
It specifically doesn't say you make an opportunity attack, you just make an attack.
Yeah.
Okay.
that
is pretty different. Hooray!
So they should have done with Polar Master, just like to prevent what we just talked about.
Right.
It's flat out. It should not combine like that. I don't care about the 2 feet tax.
Especially because you could go like versatile human, and then you're a fighter who gets the
most ASIs.
Yeah, all of that, anyways.
Yeah, but then I just start throwing a bunch of enemies with the mobile feat because screw you.
Which is also just bullshit. Yeah. It's like, I'm gonna add feats to my enemies because I'm upset about my players.
Well, maybe Sentinel shouldn't be so stupid.
He's a variant goblin.
Sentinel by itself is fine. It's the 2 combinations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, adding feats to your enemies every once in a while to add a tactical flair to your game and put your players in a corner is a good thing. All right, Will? Screw you. Giving it to every enemy? Yes, that would be stupid.
No, I'm with you. I love it when, even as a player, and it like screws me over. That it's like, oh, you gave him the feat, and then I get your noise now. That was so cool. It's like it's all good. I love the little surprises.
Whoa, I recognize that bullshit. You gave him that feat.
What was that, Will? You cut out.
We're getting excited recognizing the bullshit feats you slap on enemies.
Yeah. No, I know there's always that time where I'll say like, they'll run away and Kevin, it's always you. You'll be like, but I have Sentinel. And I'll be like, I know what you have. I don't give a shit. Like, does he have something? Oh, you know he has something.
Or the other way around, I'm playing a rogue. So I disengage as a bonus action. Oh, he still hits you. He has Sentinel. It's like crap.
Yep. Got him.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what I did. I gave the enemy Sentinel and Mobile. That dude was a beast.
Yeah.
All right. Next is Commanding Presence. So this is another out of combat one. When you make a intimidation check or performance or persuasion check, you can expend 1 superiority die, add the superiority die to the ability check. I like them. Again, you just get so many options.
Yeah, there's another one like this for intelligence, and then I guess also somewhat the ambush that we talked about at the beginning, where the kind of design option of trying to plug the hole of there is a complaint where just like the pure marshal is like a fighter, just out of combat doesn't get much. Like spellcasters always can have the option of picking out of combat spells and get a bunch of cool utility, where the fighter's kind of left on the sidelines in that sense. And so here are options to just make them more viable out of combat. These could potentially be huge boosts to these checks.
Yeah. Or they could be 1.
Yes.
That is how dice work. We have established that.
Next is then Grappling Strike. Immediately after you hit a creature with a melee attack on your turn, you can expend 1 superiority die and then try to grapple the target as a bonus action. Add the superiority die to your athletics check. So somebody at Wizards of the Coast is definitely a fan of grapplers, and they needed to throw some bones their way.
Yep, I like it.
Me too. This is good.
Yes.
Good ability.
Early on, let me backpedal here. Early on, it's good when you have just like 1 attack or 5th level and 2 attacks. But don't forget, fighters ultimately later on get 3 and then 4 attacks, and then can get a bonus attack based on feats and what weapons they have. You can always, just rules as written, it's all in the player handbook, substitute one of your attacks to attempt to grapple. So if you have 3 attacks and then a 4th bonus attack because you got a Polearm Master or whatever, you can, on the first one, substitute attack, grapple them, and then get all your rest of your attacks in. And so I think this becomes less viable.
A little bit. It still is nice though, just because bonus actions generally aren't used that much. That's Polearm Master, once again, that allows you to make the bonus action attack like with the butt of the polearm. So that's one feat where, yes, you might not want this as well because it seems a little bit silly, but any other build, your bonus action is just sitting there basically every turn. I think Great Weapon Master is when you get a crit, or when you kill an enemy, you get to cleave, and you can make a additional attack. Right. I don't remember if that's with a bonus action. It is
a bonus, yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, there's very rare just free attacks.
Right. So there's a couple of combinations where it might not work very well, but with a grappler build, I don't think you're going to have that issue as much. I don't see many polearm grappler mixes. That just doesn't make sense. Great Weapon Master, probably. That might come up.
In theory, oh, no, man, it does say you need a free hand to grapple someone. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so this is, to me, seems like a weird design thing with adding the bonus action to it, because this fits in with trip attack or shove attack, which are other maneuvers that were put in the player handbook, where it's the same sort of thing. Just like grappling, you could substitute one of your base attacks for trying to knock someone prone or shove them like 10 feet back or something. I don't remember what. And then the Battlemaster maneuver, like trip attack, allows you to do it on an attack. So it kind of combines it into one. And they make a save for it. And if they fail, then it just happens. You hit them, you add your superiority die to the damage, and then if they fail their save, they're tripped. This one makes you also expend a bonus action. But you still have to roll like your grapple check on them and everything. But the superior die is, but it just seems weird that it's makes you expend the bonus action.
Yeah, that's perfectly fair. I'm sure my initial thought goes to the realism of it, where it makes sense to trip somebody with an attack, but it doesn't make sense to me to hit someone with a sword and also grapple them. I guess.
It is a little weird, yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it has to. I mean, you can swing a sword and reach out with your other hand and grab them. I don't know. You're a Battlemaster. You can do that.
Right.
So, yeah, that does make it a little bit weaker. Still an alright
and
option.
if that's your plan for this to come off, you still have to hit them first. So it almost adds a second barrier. Like you have to hit them, and then you also have to pass your grapple check. So it has a chance to just completely and utterly fail.
Yeah, you're not going to fail that often, though.
You know, like I'm going to trip them, and then I'm going to grapple them, so then they're stuck prone, and then everyone's just going to beat up on them with getting advantage. But instead of just like kind of making it happen, you have to first hit them with an attack, and then they still get a save and a grapple check and everything. I don't know. Like in our Swole Coast campaign, I'm playing a level 20 Battlemaster who has trip attack, and I do use it. But superiority die, I mean, they are somewhat limited, and when you get 4 attacks a turn, you blow through them super quick, and I'm finding significantly more. I was just like giving up my first attack to shove them prone, and then still whacking on them 3 times. So that was at level 20, but still.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. It probably falls off. That's what you started with. It falls off at higher levels. I think you're right, because of that superiority die tax. And bonus action tax, just because trip and other things don't take that. So,
yeah,
I'll give it to you. You win this round, Kevin. Ooh, that's what we need, a little counter for these dumb arguments.
Who's right?
Yeah. Wills just keeps lowering for some reason into the negatives.
Negative 17, because I don't edit the videos.
So I don't hate this. It's just I'm weary of it. I would need to play with it. I would need to like build a grappling character and play with this and see how it actually feels and works out.
I think it would probably mesh well with that unarmed build where you're getting the 1d4 grappling, just because you're just focusing on grappling and you need to do everything to make sure you get that grapple off.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
All right, what's next? Quick Toss. As a bonus action, you could spend a superiority die, make a ranged attack with a weapon that is a thrown property. You can draw the weapon as part of making the attack. If you hit, add the superiority die to the damage roll. It steps on the thrown weapon fighting style, because that's one of the big things. You could draw it as part of the attack.
This is a bonus action, so this is just...
bonus
gravy.
action. Duh.
Pure gravy for thrown.
Yeah. Okay. I blanked on that it's a bonus action. That's actually kind of cool. So it's like, hit somebody's choice with your greatsword and then pull a dagger out and like, whoosh, it's real quick.
Yeah. It's actually pretty cool.
Yeah, all right. I like the flavor of it, that's
imagine
for sure.
this taken to its logical and insane conclusion at level 20, throwing 5 axes in a turn.
Yes.
And then throwing 4 more.
With the accent church, yeah.
Didn't we talk about this earlier? You can already do that if they're light. Can't you just bonus action throw the dagger with 2 weapon fighting?
You can, yeah.
So this is getting around the
drawing it, so that's
right.
Combining well.
Right, but
if
you're already...
you can throw things that don't suck. Actually, I'm not sure if that's true.
I think the best thing to throw is hand axes. I don't know if those are light off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure they are. They're totally
They don't
light.
need to be. It's just if either weapon has the thrown property, you could throw the weapon instead of making a melee attack. That's in addition to the other stuff, but I think all thrown weapons are light. That it would be kind of silly otherwise.
Yeah. Well, a javelin.
You can throw
javelin.
Spears.
Yeah.
Like just straight up regular spears.
Oh, okay. True.
If you just
those aren't
don't
light.
care about money.
So, yeah, thrown weapon fighting, I guess the big thing is that you'd be getting the +2 bonus to the damage roll. The drawing and throwing it aspect, and, of course, adding the superiority die to it.
Right.
But that's really all you're getting if you are going thrown weapon fighting. You're just getting that ability to draw it, or, geez. It's better for people who aren't already doing that. If you already have if you're already taking the thrown weapon fighting style, then I don't see a reason to take this maneuver. All you're getting is the ability to add your superiority die to the attack, and there are plenty other ways to do that. I'd much rather throw the bonus action dagger and use the trip, because the dagger hits them in the leg, and now they're on the ground, so that your paladin can come up and smite them.
Right. I mean, also, though, with the superiority die option, quick toss, you can add your dex or strength to it, the damage.
Yeah.
What? Why shrugging?
Because you're still just...
I mean, that adds up.
Yeah, I know, but you're still getting a +2 bonus to the damage roll anyways with thrown weapon fighting.
Right.
Or do you? So you can draw a weapon that has the thrown property as part of the attack you make with the weapon. So that actually wouldn't let you draw one as a part of your bonus action. Interesting. Well, because it says you can draw a weapon that has the thrown property as part of the attack you make with the weapon.
Right.
So
if you're doing 2 weapon fighting bonus action, it's not like the capital attack action.
Yeah.
This is part of the attack.
You're totally right. So yeah, it's mostly good for people who aren't doing thrown weapon fighting, in my opinion, because all you're getting, as you mentioned, otherwise is the addition to your damage from your dex or strength.
I'm convinced the hand axe thing is a typo.
Which part?
The 1d6, like it's light, thrown, 2060, like everything is 1d6, thrown, 2060, except for the light hammer, which is light, thrown, and 1d4. But if you want to throw tridents, you need this.
Oh, because it can just be anything that has the thrown property.
Right.
Geez, so you could just have a javelin on your back and whip that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so cool. That's cooler than the dagger. The dagger aspect was pretty cool, but just swinging a greatsword and then pulling a dagger off a javelin off your back and launching that, even better.
Mm-hmm.
And that you can't do with your bonus action. And all of this,
right?
To use your bonus action, you'd need to only use light stuff, which does again work with level 20 throwing a bunch of hand axes.
Right.
So I guess it all just depends.
Yep.
But I like the option. Just to cap it off there. I like that it's an option.
Yep, but yeah, definitely moving my cat. Definitely seems like the pick for someone who they're not built around throwing weapons, because they're probably already going to be using light stuff and taking that bonus action anyways. For someone who's attacking with a greatsword or sword and shield, then being able to use this to do a quick and powerful ranged attack.
Last one is Tactical Assessment. Another one of those out of combat ones that we've basically already talked about, but when you make a investigation, history, or insight check, you can add a superiority die. I don't like this one. Like all the other ones, this one, not a fan.
It's because fighters are supposed to be dummies.
Yeah, that's it.
No, it's fine. I like all these back pocket. Like, this really does actually fill out the Battlemaster, because it's just like, here are options that you can keep in your back pocket for the entire campaign. They may or may not help you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, good additions to an already great class. Shocker.
Yep.
So now,
right,
we get to our lovely new subclasses. Take it away, Kevin. Not Will. Will can't read.
So, first one is the Psi Warrior. This is the Psionic Fighter, basically. There's a bunch of these being added in. The Sorcerer had one as well. And now here's, I guess Ranger didn't, but here's the Psionic version of a fighter. Honestly, flavor doesn't go much further beyond that. It's just your fighter who boosts your abilities with psionic powers. How you got those is pretty open. The first feature of the subclass you get at 3rd level is Psionic Power. You harbor a wellspring of psionic energy within yourself. It's represented by psionic energy die, which each are a d6 to start. The number of these die equal twice your proficiency bonus, and they fuel various powers, which we'll get to below. Some of your powers expend these die, and you can't use a power if it requires you to use a die when you don't have any. You regain them all on a long rest, which is kind of a deviation for a fighter. Fighters are very much short rest classes. Almost everything they have comes back on a short rest. Here's something where it's a long rest, so just kind of a deviation from the normal sort of design. But they get so many of them, double proficiency bonus, I think that's okay. In addition, as a bonus action, you regain 1 expended psionic energy die, but once per short or long rest.
Yeah, that one feels weird. Like at low levels, you're like, oh, okay, I guess I need 1 more. But at higher levels, if I've already burned through them, 1? Really? That's all you're going to give me?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just okay, I guess.
Yeah. And then at different levels, the die goes up. At 5th level, goes up to D8, 11th to D10, 17th to D12, and so on.
Which is always good.
At 3rd level, then the 3 things you can do with these are Protective Field, Psionic Strike, or Telekinetic Movement. With Protective Field, when you are a creature you can see within 30 feet of you takes damage, you could use your reaction, spend 1 of these dice, roll the die, and reduce the damage taken by the number rolled, plus your intelligence modifier, as you could create a momentary shield of telekinetic force. I think that's great.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts a little that it's reliant on intelligence, but all psionic classes are at least a bit. It's kind of the point of them. It's just a good ability, though.
Yeah.
It was great on Ancestral Guardians. So
right.
It's good here.
Right.
Which this isn't nearly as good as Ancestral Guardians, but that doesn't come online until... I don't know when that actually starts.
I think 6th.
Okay.
It's not too much later.
Right. And then at 14th level is when they can start dealing the damage back.
Bang.
They reduce it and deal it back. And that ability is just crazy.
Right. This one is also relying on a resource, which you could run out of, obviously. But like I said, you do get a lot of them, and then being able to reduce like that, I think it's good within 30 feet. And it would stack with something like the Interception fighting style we talked about earlier. Or no, they're both a reaction.
They're both reactions,
yeah. So no.
This would fill the gaps for what we discussed as the limitations. 30 feet is way broader, and this is everything, you know?
Right.
Arrows.
Yeah.
Weirdness.
Like I say, the interception ones generally probably going to be reducing more, but this could be done within 30 feet, and you could also do it on yourself. So, all in all, I think it would come up a good amount.
Yeah, I get the feeling that most people are going to use Psionic Strike over Protective Field, but we'll see.
Yeah, it depends on the character concept.
Yeah, definitely. If you want to be more of a protector, then I think there's a fantastic way for you to build that character and focus on your protective fields instead of Psionic Strike. Whereas if you want to be the super high DPS, basically smiting fighter, you've got Psionic Strike, which Kevin will explain now.
Yes, you could propel your weapons with psionic force once on your turn, immediately after you hit a target within 30 feet of you. With an attack and deal damage to it with the weapon, you can expend 1 psionic energy die, rolling it and dealing force damage to the target, equal to the number rolled plus your intelligence modifier. It's kind of like a lighter smite.
Yeah, I like this one doesn't say minimum reduction of 1, because you can have negative intelligence and just make this totally pointless.
Oh, makes sense.
Like, why did you choose this class? It can be chosen after you hit, though, so those crits are going to be through the roof. Not as strong as a Paladin smites, but they're there. It's good.
Right. Also, I kind of compare it to Colossus Slayer from Ranger, where if you hit something that's not a max health, you deal an additional 1d8 once per turn. Which is also, I would say, better than this, most likely, unless your intelligence is like +5, which is probably pretty unlikely. Just because that doesn't have a resource tied to it, where this does. So, like, if Psionic Strike was its own standalone ability at 3rd level, I think we'd be kind of upset about it, saying, oh, that's just kind of a weak 3rd level. Like, if that's all you got to do with your Psionic energy dice. But since you have other options, and it kind of gives you a cool versatility.
Yeah. No, I think that's a pretty good point. Maybe it would be better to just use the protective field and negate more damage. I know the general rule of thumb with 5th edition is it's better to deal damage than to take away damage, because it's generally easier to kill things. The best way to stop more damage from coming is to kill things. So, yeah, just depends. Right. It's not bad, though.
Yeah, even though, then compared to, I guess it's kind of on par with Battlemaster maneuvers, because they also start as a d6, don't they? And you don't add your intelligence to them. Most maneuvers have you, if it hits, you add the superiority dice to the damage. And so you kind of have to compare it to that as well, because that's one of the big benefits. Where it's saying even Battlemasters honestly like out-damage champions and all that just because of the maneuvers. But it also starts at d6. They level up at the same of 5th, 11th, and 17th. This adds your intelligence. Those don't. But they have a rider effect. This doesn't. So yeah, I guess that's kind of balanced.
You also get a lot more of these.
Yeah, you do. You get a whole hell of a lot more of them.
I take that back, because Battlemaster superiority dice come back on a short rest. These don't.
Yeah.
So it's comparable, and that's what's important.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
But adding your intelligence modifier, I think, is going to be a big part of this. It is going to make this a harder class to take feats with, because usually those ability score increases. You get your strength to 20 pretty quickly, and then you look at the rest of your leveling path, and you just have all of these glorious ASIs that can be replaced with feats. This, you get your strength to 20 or your dex to 20, and then you go, time to work on intelligence so that this is actually worthwhile.
Right. Yeah, it would be a mad character.
Or you could just buy a headband of intellect.
So, yeah.
For like $20 from your DM.
Yeah, they're uncommon, so if your DM says no, find a new table, man.
It still just reminds me of that conversation with Treant Monk, where we're like, oh yeah, if I don't have a magic weapon by level 5, I'm going after it. It's like, I don't care what is in my way. I am getting that magic weapon.
Yeah. All right, and then the last one here is Telekinetic Movement. You can move an object or creature with your mind as an action. Choose one loose object that is large or smaller, or one willing creature other than yourself. If you can see the target is within 30 feet of you, you can move it up to 30 feet to an unoccupied space you can see. Alternatively, it's a tiny object. You could pull it into your hand. Either way, you can move the target horizontally, vertically, or both. Once you take this action, you can't do so until you finish a short or long rest, or unless you expend a psionic energy die.
This is basically their mage hand. It's a little bit different. Is there a weight?
A little bit.
It's a lot of it different. It's a lot of it different, sorry. And I'm glad that they gave them this over mage hand, as this comes back on a short rest. You get one for free, which is nice. So you're probably not going to be wanting for it too often, but if you are, you spend the psionic energy and you've got an option. I don't see it happening in combat too much, unless you have a cool arena that you're fighting in.
Yeah, I mean, you could use it to bring in cover for somebody, move an ally to cover, lift an ally up onto a ledge, pull them down safely, things like that. I think it will sometimes come up in combat. I wouldn't say it will always be, but because it's kind of situational. But I think in and out of combat, there will be plenty of uses for this. What's interesting is the creature doesn't have a size limit, if I'm reading that correct.
As an action, you target one loose object that is large or smaller, or one willing creature other than yourself. Yeah, that does not seem to be... The object is limited to size, but didn't seem like the person is.
Yeah, I don't know if it's implied that the large or smaller also applies to the creature, but with how it's written, it doesn't make me think that.
No.
But that'd be kind of weird that you could do this with like a gargantuan dragon if it's willing.
How often is that
I don't
going
know
to
why
really
we-
come
we
up?
need
It's
you
like,
to
I need to
move 'em.
move my friendly dragon pal 30 feet.
He has no other way of moving across this chasm. It's still weird, though. Like, you'd think they'd put some limitation on it.
Yeah.
I think that you do bring up a good point, though, Kevin. This, to me, is a ability that will reward a creative player. Putting your archer 30 feet higher onto a ledge so that they can stay out of the fray and have a good angle on shots may be worth foregoing your action for.
Right.
That is going to be the hard part to justify it, though, is that your move needs to be worth giving up an entire action. And that just gets harder and harder the further you go along in leveling, as that's going from giving up 1 attack to 2 attacks to 3.
No, most definitely.
Still cool, good to have in your pocket. Obviously, the ones you're mostly going to use, Protective Field, Psionic Strike.
All right, next one is Telekinetic Adapt. You get a 7th level. You have mastered new ways to use your telekinetic abilities, detailed below. So you get psi-powered leaps as a bonus action. You can propel your body with your mind. You gain a flying speed equal to twice your walking speed until the end of the current turn. This is a bonus action. You could do it once per short or long rest, or you can spend a psionic energy die. Free flying speed for a turn. Fine, great. I mean,
This is awesome.
Yeah.
I love that. Especially because it's flying speed equal to twice your walking speed. That's some
Right.
really good movement. Solid
Yeah.
60 feet, 50 to 60 or whatever feet of movement in one turn as a bonus action too. Awesome.
Yeah, there are plenty of situations that'll come up in or out of combat. I mean, yeah, get it once for free, and then spend a die. I think there will be plenty of uses to spend a die to get 60 fly speed for a turn.
Right.
It's just being till the end of your current turn is kind of limiting, but I think you still make use of it.
I mean,
It's
it's
like
in the name. It's called a psionic leap or psi-powered leap.
Right.
It's easiest to give you just fly speed, but that's what I imagine. This guy's shooting you. You can't reach him. I jump up there and hit him in the face.
Right. Yeah, it can't really be used to do that long term though.
No, this is about
Yeah,
getting
yeah,
yourself
it's-
into a better position. It's not about getting a hit off. Unless you fly up and grapple somebody, and then you just lose your flying speed and you have to fall down with them or something. I don't know if you'd hang on.
It depends how big they are and what their carrying capacity is and blah blah blah.
I like
You just
that
gotta
though.
play that one by
That'd be
ear.
really
Yeah.
fun.
The grapple
Dangerous.
drop build.
No, we had that before. It blew up.
Yeah, that didn't work.
A forever.
But no, not about the pulling them down aspect, but something is flying, you give yourself the fly speed for a turn, and then you grapple onto them and you just hold on until they have to kick you off.
Right.
Getting out of a grapple is your entire action.
Yeah, leak up 60 feet of them, grab onto them, and then just start punching them and shit.
They're not going to expect
Trying
that.
to deal with you. No.
They're going to be so
No.
scared.
Yes. Until they wriggle out of it, and then you plummet 60 feet. It takes 66 falling damage.
Eh.
Yeah. That's where the limit comes in a bit, but or same where if if you want to leap up and then hit something 4 times and then come back down, they can't be higher than half your movement. Otherwise you're taking falling damage at the end of it.
You just tank that shit.
Yeah.
It don't matter. 66? Come on.
That's quite a bit.
Max of 36 damage. Put it that way. Average of 4 times. Average of 24 damage. Meh.
Definitely have its uses. I'm sure would come up a lot. A little limited, but that's all right. I think it's definitely more interesting than just giving you a fly speed for like a minute or whatever. And the other ability you get at 7th level is Telekinetic Thrust. When you deal damage to a target with your Psionic Strike, that's the one where you can add your Psionic Energy die plus your Intelligence modifier after you hit. You can force the target to make a Strength saving throw, which equals 8 plus your Proficiency plus your Intelligence modifier. If the save fails, you can knock the target prone or move it up to 10 feet in any direction horizontally. Kind of like a nice rider, which actually makes Psionic Strike better, that's for sure. Because, if you're using that, this just happens as well. So it kind of puts it in line with the Battlemaster's Trip Attack or Shove Attack, whatever that one's called. Like the maneuvers.
Yeah, it's like doing it in, well, not in reverse, but it catches up.
Yeah. And, definitely look at its uses. Kind of the same thing that we talked about previously with like Trip Attack. As you get higher, it's like the number of attacks you get every round shoots up, where your spear, the amount of die you have stays somewhat limited, and so sometimes you may not want to use them for that and just sacrifice the attack and blah, blah, blah. But same thing here, but it'll still have its uses, that's for sure.
So, Kevin, can you tell me what happens if you hit a flying creature with an attack that makes them go prone?
They fall, don't they?
They fall. So
Unless they
if
have
you...
hover.
Unless they have hover, I'm pretty sure, yeah.
Maybe I'm not sure on that, but yeah.
So if you fly 30 feet up and then hit somebody with your Telekinetic Thrust ability and make them go prone, you can drop them out of the sky and then safely descend.
Yeah. Or you could do Psionic Strike from 30 feet away, so you could throw something. You could do one of your quick toss javelins because you took the fighting style that gives you a maneuver and you took that, or whatever, really. Shoot them with a bow.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is something that Battlemaster does often with the trip attack. You can knock stuff out of the sky. It's a great ability and a great use of that. So Here you go. Here's another way to do it.
Yep. Cool. And at 10th level, they get Guarded Mind. The psionic energy flowing through you has bolstered your mind. You have resistance to psychic damage. Just fine, great. And if you start your turn Charmed or Frightened, you can expend a psionic energy die and end the effect on yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that it is expending a die instead of just giving you advantage on saving throws against the effect in the first place, mostly because that's just a bit overused. And this lets you decide after the fact if you think it's worthwhile. Usually the answer is going to be yes to use one of those dice.
And I like how it's, other than the dice, it's effectively free. It is not as a bonus action or an action. It's just at the start of your turn.
Yeah.
This is always what just a monk ability.
That's what I hate about the monk ability, though. The stillness of mind is, I think, an entire action.
Mm-hmm. It is free. I'll say that it is free.
Right.
Where this one has the psionic energy die.
First telekinetic thrust, now guarded mind. This is just a monk, guys.
A monk with different resources.
Very similar resources.
As say, the psionic.
Oh, stillness of mind is specifically charmed or frightened. Interesting.
Yep.
So quite similar.
Yeah. A lot of effects that are charmed or frightened could be really nasty because a lot of the riders and abilities they have. Yeah, if you fail a saving throw, you are charmed, well charmed in this way. Here's all this extra terrible shit that happens to you beyond just the charmed status. Same with frightened, so being able to just end all of that.
Easily the two most confusing status conditions in 5th edition. Because you look at frightened and charmed, and they're always like, oh, okay, well that's something, but barely ever does it come up where it's just frightened or just charmed, to the point that when they are just one or the other, I know we always have to look it up. It's like, wait, what's just frightened again? Okay, so I can't move forward, but I don't have to run? Okay.
Right. Yeah, is this the really bad frightened where I have to run away and spend all my actions and reactions and drop what I'm holding, or do I just can't move towards them? Or yeah, it's always a thing.
I hate those so much, especially when it's a high DC and it's literally an unpassable save. It's like, oh, I have a negative modifier to that and I need a 21. Huh, I guess I'll spend the next minute sprinting away.
So there you go, make a Psionic Fighter, Psi Warrior. Actually, yeah, that's usually those saves are going to be like wisdom or charisma, at which most likely a fighter's not going to be great at. So this is a really nice boost. Because yeah, that's definitely a situation that has come up for all of us, where we're like the martial warrior who's really, really like important and deadly in combat. And someone gets a fear off, and we spend the entire combat running away because we just can't pass that stupid save.
I do remember that fight, yes.
It's happened multiple times.
It has.
Some variant of that. All right, number 15.
Level 15, number 15.
Yeah.
That's fine.
The level 15th ability is Bulwark of Force. You can shield yourself and others with telekinetic force. As a bonus action, choose a creature, which can include you, within 30 feet of you, up to a number of creatures up to your intelligence modifier. Each one of those creatures is protected by half cover for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated. You can do this once just per long rest, or then afterwards spend a psionic energy die.
It's pretty cool. Half cover, as we've talked about. I think it was the Ranger one that did half cover. That specific wording is somewhat like giving +2 to everyone's AC and +2 to dexterity saving throws.
Right. I say, because half cover impacts melee attacks as well, correct? It's not just ranged. Yeah, so, yeah. That's definitely really nice being able to do it once a day for free, and then if you really need to do it again.
Pretty low cost, to be honest.
Yeah.
At that point at 15th, you're going to have a D10. So you're giving up a D10 potential in damage or damage reduction. But +2 to AC for everybody, probably a little bit better.
Yeah. And if I'm reading it right, they don't have to stay within 30 feet of you.
No.
It's like when you use this, they need to be within 30 feet, and then they just have it for a minute, right?
Yes. And I'm getting that specifically because it says it lasts until 1 minute or until you're incapacitated.
Right. Yeah, so it's at the fight, everyone's grouped up. You do this. And then...
No concentration, too. I mean, this is basically a concentration-free spell.
I was going to say, yeah, if there's like a spell that did this, that's like 3rd or 4th level, we would think, yeah, that's a solid spell. I could see using it without the concentration. So here you go. 15th level is obviously high. It's one of those where you start getting into territory. I just don't think a lot of players are going to see this.
Endgame.
It's definitely a solid ability, yeah.
14th or 15th are what I really consider capstones for most campaigns, because that's what Wizard of the Coast usually ends around.
Right. And even though it's still only just +2 AC at 15th level, that's still really good because bounded accuracy within 5e, AC doesn't get crazy high. Always worth pointing out.
I know. I just imagine it like now that you're doing this video, all I can think of is just funny effects. And I just imagine like bounded accuracy just like scrolling across the screen and like fancy print and everything.
Right.
And you don't have to do all of these. Like, don't spend all your time editing the videos for every dumb request I have. But
we'll see how it goes.
It's what the people want.
Yes. Actually, come to think of, what do other fighters get at like 15th? Let's hear.
15th is usually a pretty good one.
Yeah, Battlemaster at 15th gets, when you roll initiative and have no superiority die, you regain 1. That's pretty solid. Cavalier has a ferocious charger. You can run down your foes. If you move at least 10 feet in a straight line, hit with target. You can knock them prone and stuff. Yeah.
And then the Samurais...
Champion crits on 18s.
Samurais, if you have advantage on the attack, then you could forego the advantage for that roll to make an additional weapon attack against that target as part of the same action, which is... Okay. I don't know if we've ever talked about that, because I feel like that's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah, usually when we've really only talked about Samurai in the context of multi-classing.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's pretty rare for a multi-classed build to get to 15th level ability. So yeah, I would say it's in line. All right, and then finally, the last one for Psy Warrior is Telekinetic Master. You get it at 18th level. Your ability to move creatures and objects with mind is matched by few. You can cast Telekinesis spell, the Telekinesis spell, requiring no components, and your spellcasting ability is Intelligence. On each of your turns while concentrating on the spell, including the turn when you cast it, you can make one attack with a weapon as a bonus action. You could do this once per long rest, or then spend a Psionic Energy die to cast it again. So like a once per day free telekinesis that does not... Does it still require concentration?
Yes.
Okay.
It requires more than concentration, I think is the implication. It's like an active concentration.
What does it even mean?
What?
How can you be more concentrated?
On each of your turns while you concentrate on the spell, including that's you can do everything. It's not implying that you have to take your okay.
No, it's saying if you're still concentrating on it, then you can use the telekinesis ability, which usually is like maintaining it, and as a bonus action you can make a weapon attack.
Gotcha.
Personally, I actually don't like this very much.
Could you just ignore the telekinesis effect and then you get your 3 attacks and then still just be able to still do a bonus action one?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like get the bonus without using the effects of the spell?
Yes, probably. There's a lot easier ways to get a bonus action attack, as we've discussed.
Right. But yeah, if you have it, you do a once per long rest for free.
Yeah, but that's... The ability should be so good that you want to use the telekinesis, but I don't think you're going to want to, because all that you can do against a creature is restrain them. It's a 5th level spell that you have to concentrate and use your entire action to restrain the creature, and you can move it a little bit, which, that's good. But you have to actively use your action every time to keep that restrained condition active, and then your bonus action, you get 1 attack with... That's just advantage, right? Yeah.
If it's restrained, yeah. Well, and then everyone else too.
And everyone else.
So it's kind of like you could, with your mind, hold somebody down and then beat up on them.
It's pretty good single target focus.
Yeah.
But that's about it.
I mean, you could also keep moving them up and then dropping them.
Fair.
But it's always fun, yeah.
Just keep lifting them up. Or you can just move a boulder over them and just drop it.
Right. I say, yeah, the object one is you can move something up to 1,000 pounds. If it isn't being worn or carried.
So
if it is worn or carried, you could like rip something out of someone's hands.
Right, but is that going to be better than foregoing multiple attacks? Because by the time you have this, you're getting rid of 3 attacks. And at 20th level, it gets worse because you're foregoing 4 attacks now.
Right. I mean, this, in like a traditional combat type thing, no, probably not. But I mean, you could also use this outside of combat.
Yeah.
Just a free telekinesis. Your fighter could cast telekinesis for free once a day. That all of its uses. Again, just kind of more plugging that hole we talked about with some of the maneuvers of stuff to do utility outside of combat.
Yeah, I think that out of combat, your telekinetic movement is probably going to take over for most times where this is helpful. Telekinesis is like a longer term thing if you need to,
right?
I don't know, lift up a boulder while everybody runs through a door. You might need this instead of the basic telekinetic movement. But that does let you target one loose object that is large or smaller. So that comes into play where telekinesis, you can just pull something that isn't loose. They have different uses. They should. They're 3rd level and 18th level abilities, respectively.
Right.
Yeah, it just becomes one of those situations where you're doing physics in D&D and it doesn't work very well.
Yeah, not a fan of that either. It's not my favorite 18th level ability for a fighter, but it's not horrible. You're right, it has uses. I think once again, it might reward a creative player. From a pure mechanic side, I think it's going to be difficult to justify foregoing all those attacks. Because if you want to give advantage to everybody, you can do what you were saying of trip them and grapple them using 2 attacks, and now they can't get up, and it doesn't take concentration, it doesn't take all these things.
Nope, that's a good point. So overall, I really do like Psy Warrior, though. I think it's a good flavor, kind of meshes some out of combat utility and with some really great in combat type stuff, which is needed for a fighter. There's very few like dead levels.
Yeah, that I'm actually pretty impressed with. They did a really good job of just none of this feels like a dead level to me.
Right, and there's a lot of versatility in what you do. one little like pitfall, just if you're ever playing one of these, make sure you really pay attention to what comes back on a short rest or a long rest, because it keeps swapping it out. It's not just consistent throughout.
Yeah, that's fairly confusing.
Yeah.
I'm with you, though. I think this is pretty interesting. I'm generally not a huge fan of the psionic stuff, as I've mentioned before. Just feel like mind powers in a world where magic is so common doesn't specifically draw me in. But this one's really great. I think it's extremely sound mechanically. All of the mechanics there back up the flavor of the class. And it scales pretty well as you level up. Just, I don't know, good all around. I'm happy with it.
Mm-hmm. I would like to see this multi-class with a Battlesmith Artificer. I think that could be really, really good. Because they get their intelligence. They could use their intelligence for attack rolls and all that.
Ooh.
Yeah.
That sounds great.
Yeah, they can get a Steel Defender doggo type thing. I can't believe I said doggo. I never speak like that. That just came out. I'm so sorry, guys.
Man, that might actually be too good. That's really good. I can't believe I didn't think about that. A 3-level dip into Artificer with this would be amazing.
Right. Yeah, get some infusions along the way, a little bit of spell casting, and then
just flavor that continuously as psionic abilities. This is my dog that I control through my brain.
Just like through multiple magical mediums. It's like, psionic artificer magic guy.
I am always a big fan of when the multiclass when you're like just pulling from 16 different sources with the multiclass, like just say it's all from one and it just manifests in this way. I know that upsets you, Will, but what doesn't?
You know what doesn't? The champion fighter. Now that's a class.
It's a man who doesn't beat around the bush. What do you like to do? Get crits? Good.
Hate reading, like crits.
Blade Singer might be interesting as well to mesh with this. I'd have to look at the changes in Tasha's to it more closely and just kind of see how it all meshes, but again, just more focus on intelligence.
Yeah. I think just comparing it to the Eldritch Knight, which is intelligence-based,
right?
This is just so much more interesting and better. And the Eldritch Knight it's a class that I feel like everybody I've known who plays D&D in like our circle has wanted to play an Eldritch Knight, and everybody comes to the same conclusion that it just falls short so many times of making you feel like the character you're supposed to feel like, a wizard fighter.
Right. Yeah, I think in terms of filling that slot, Psionic would be Psi Warrior. That being said, they don't get any spells, so you're not like slinging cantrips.
They get telekinesis.
Sure, yeah. You're not hitting things with fire damage, getting cantrips, anything like that.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, a little different.
Yeah, no, they're definitely not the same at all, just for an intelligence fighter. Eldritch Knight, I don't know. I still like them. You have to play them a very specific way. And that I don't like. You're very locked into your path with them.
Yeah, and early on, they feel a little weak.
Yeah.
When their spells, like your spells are so incredibly low, and you don't have any other the cool features. Yeah, like War Magic, where you could, after you cast a cantrip, you can make a weapon as a bonus attack. That's like a really cool feature, and especially in terms of playing in that power fantasy of that spellcaster, martial character. But it doesn't come online until 7th level.
Right. Ah, well. Seems like they've learned some things about the fighters. The last couple, Echo Knight as well, was just like an extremely solid fighter class. They've done a really good job of making these unique niches with fighter, which I feel like I would have assumed was difficult.
Cool, but you want to move on to Rune Knight?
Yes, I do, more than anything. All right, Rune Knights are the coolest class ever. And the only fighter class you're ever going to need. Remember Psi Warrior? Thought that was cool? Nah, we're throwing that out. It's all about Rune Knights now. Because these are extremely flavorful, as they're basically a fighter who is well-versed in runes, usually specifically dealing with giants. So how you get this information is up to backstory reasons. You could have studied giants, you could have found their information carved into a hill or a cave, or maybe you had a powerful sage who already went through all of this crap and they're teaching you. Whatever it is. You were raised by giants, doesn't matter. And their whole thing is that they just get to use these runes in order to boost their abilities, to get a whole bunch of choice in what runes they take, in what order, more than anything. And starting off with their 3rd level ability of bonus proficiencies, super exciting, I know. They gain proficiency in Smith's tools, and they can learn to speak, read, and write Giant. So that right there is probably the capstone of the class and why everyone's going to multi-class into it, if I had to guess.
Right.
Also at 3rd level, they get the Rune Carver ability. Little less cool, but let's see how it goes. So they can use magic runes to enhance their gear. You learn 2 runes of your choice from among these runes described below, and each time you gain a level in the class, you can replace one rune with a different one, if that's your thing. Way that it scales, 3rd level you have 2, 7th you have 3, 10th you have 4, 15th you get your 5th. Basically, when they finish a long rest, they can touch a number of objects equal to the number of runes they know, as just described, and they can etch the rune onto the surface of those objects. To be eligible, the object has to be a weapon, suit of armor, a shield, a piece of jewelry, or something else you can wear or hold in a hand, which I feel like really just comes down to anything that's an object that you can hold. So you can get really creative with that aspect, and I like it. Your rune remains on the object until you finish a long rest, and an object can bear only one of your runes at a time. So, the runes do have, let's say, a saving throw. Talk about that. If it comes up, it is DC 8 plus your proficiency plus your constitution modifier, which is fitting with the giant flavor and also interesting because not many saves are created from your constitution modifier, and that's something that everybody wants anyways because constitution's awesome. So there's a lot of runes, and they're all split into passive and active features, as I think of it. The passive is just something that you get all day. It's usually pretty bare bones and light. And then there is a actively using it ability that is generally on a short rest that you get that back. The first one is the Cloud Rune. And for that, the passive ability is that you get advantage on sleight of hand checks and deception checks. And then the active ability is when you or a creature you can see within 30 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to invoke the rune and choose a different creature within 30 feet of you other than the attacker, and the chosen creature becomes the target of the attack using the same roll. So, and this ignores the range of the attack. So if somebody hits your friend with a greatsword and crits, you can say, no, you hit your friend with a greatsword that crits.
Yeah. Now, that activated effect that's amazing. I don't know anything else that's like that definitive. There's no save or anything for it, right? It just happens.
Yep. And it comes back on a short or long rest. So I definitely could see sitting on this for just waiting for that crit to happen.
Right. Yeah, and I love that it comes back on a short rest. Just fitting back in with that concept of fighters are kind of short rest classes.
Yeah.
The passive abilities, the advantage on sleight of hand or deception checks. It's fine. It's kind of more, again, in that design idea of giving them out of combat things to plug that hole. Here's another one. It's the only issue I kind of see is that activated effect would be universally helpful for any fighter, any party, really, where the advantage on sleight of hand and deception is a really specific character idea. So I could kind of see that issue coming up where you're picking Cloud Rune to be able to transfer attacks and just basically ignoring the passive. Because that's not the character you want to play. You don't want to play the sneaky, stealthy fighter. You're the Honorable Knight or whatever.
Yeah, and generally it's just might not come up because you have somebody else who's better at those things. Just because you have advantage on it doesn't mean I have proficiency in it.
Right.
Or any points into charisma or dexterity, because I already have to rely on constitution and strength, or maybe dexterity again. Depends on your fighter.
Mhm.
But you've got a bard in the party who's great at those
Right.
things, or a rogue who's great at those things.
Right. Definitely. Yeah. But the
Go ahead.
I say the activated effect might be so good, it's just worth it anyways.
It is. That's not,
Yeah.
it might be. It just is amazing.
It is good to just have that in your back pocket once per short rest. Definitely. And just to make sure I'm understanding this correctly, you cannot put these runes, like no one else could use these runes, right? I can't put this on like someone else's armor. Okay, it has to be you.
Oh, this is a really good question. But it's... I guess somebody else might be able to wear it? Oh, no. No. Actually, I think you can give it to somebody else. Because you're inscribing the objects, but then it says, while wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune, you have advantage on dexterity checks and charisma checks. I get the feeling that the point of that is that you can give it to other people.
Yeah, but it keeps using you. It doesn't say the creature who has this rune or anything like that.
Yeah. I guess it would probably be more explicit if it was supposed to be.
You could pass it around, yeah.
Yeah. All right, I would say that, yeah, you probably cannot give it to somebody else. But I'd be interested to see if we're wrong on that. So I'll once again leave it up to the comments. If you know more and you've already had this argument with your friends, go ahead and put it in the comments. Next up, though, is the Fire Rune. This one's pretty good as well. So the passive, I think none of these passives are really going to be mind-blowing, but
Right.
while wearing or carrying an object inscribed with this rune, your proficiency bonus is doubled for any ability check you make that uses your proficiency with a tool. Those don't come up too often, but if they do, cool. The activated ability is when you hit a creature with an attack using a weapon, you can invoke the rune to summon fiery shackles. The target takes an extra 2d6 fire damage, and it must succeed on a strength saving throw or be restrained for 1 minute. While restrained by the shackles, the target takes 2d6 fire damage at the start of each of its turns, and it can repeat the saving throw at the end of each of its turns. And it banishes the shackles on a success. Once again, comes back on a short or long rest. No save. Oh, no, sorry. There's no save for the damage. The rest is a save. Go ahead.
Compared to some of the other ones, and also the ultimately one of the weakest passives, I just don't see using this one. Because they said the passive is really, really situational. It does not come up much unless you've kind of built a character around that. And if you did, then you know you're going to use this anyways, and you don't need us to talk to you about it. In terms of the activated effect, it's one where initially it sounds really great, but there has to be the strength saving throw, and if they pass it, it just doesn't happen. And then like there goes your once per short rest ability that you've been reserving this for. And then if it goes off, but they pass it on just like the very next turn, again, it's really just not worth it. Like you used this in place of something else to do 2d6 fire damage and restrain them for 1 turn.
But it's just when you hit. So it's not taking your action to use. It's not taking a bonus action to use. It's just when you hit, you can do this. And even if it all fails, they succeed on the strength saving throw, you get 2d6 fire damage. So I think that alone is okay.
Yeah, it's the opportunity cost of what other runes you're not using. Like I would never pick Fire Rune over Cloud Rune. And I know you get 2, but I think some of the other ones later on are better.
But
fair.
Restrained is not bad, but it's not great.
Right.
Obviously, you want it to happen, but 1 round of that, I mean, it's just okay.
Depends on what you're fighting as well.
Yeah.
If you're fighting something that is not strong, then this can be an encounter ender. I'll say that it's a lot swingier than a lot of these other ones.
Right. It's situational, but unfortunately, you can't just decide this at the situation. You have to put the rune on after a long rest. at the beginning of the day.
That's still pretty versatile in my opinion.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, on a long rest, at least maybe you don't always know exactly what you're going to fight, but if you do know that what you're going to fight is weaker, you might swap out one of the less important ones, like the one that charms a creature, the stone rune that we'll get to in a moment, or even the frost rune, which, whatever. Either way, you just might realize that, hey, this could be useful in this scenario to restrain the creature.
So just to clarify, you kind of get all your runes, and that's basically it. So you know 2 runes. You inscribe 2 runes, which are those runes.
Right.
That's it. You want to swap your runes at the different level.
Oh, it's on a
by
level
15th
up?
level.
Oh, yeah. That's a really good point. Yes.
By 15th level, you know every single one of these but one. So going forward, keep in mind, you will only ever drop 1 if you get up to 15th level.
Yeah, okay. Good point. Yeah, long rest would make this a lot better. Might be hard to pick early on. It might be one of the later level picks.
That's fair. As you get higher, and yeah, you're getting more.
At the same time,
options.
though, I think this is much stronger at low levels.
Yeah.
Because once again, at 3rd level, doing 2d6 damage for free, lots and lots of damage. At 15th level, doing 2d6 damage, and everything you fight probably being stronger or just having higher saves in general might not get this off as much.
Right. Yeah. It's
Let's go through
situational. Because it also, it really matters based on the other options at this level.
Right. And also keep in mind, we're not actually building a character right now. So, so if it fits the character, yada, 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 it might make sense to choose. Next one is the Frost Rune. So the passive is advantage on animal handling checks and intimidation checks. And I did have a question about this one. Do you get double advantage if you're intimidating an animal?
No.
Yes.
But I think you knew the answer to that.
Of course I knew the
Advantage
answer to
just
that.
doesn't stack.
Yeah. So that's a
a weird
passive.
combination.
It's a super weird passive. I don't get the combination.
I'm sure it has something to do with the lower frost giants that we just don't know, because we have yet to do our big giant episode. But
Oh, yeah. That kind of got canceled because of Tasha's.
Tasha's, yeah.
Yeah, it is a weird combination,
yeah,
though.
Yeah.
I got nothing else to say. Then
I could see fighters wanting to be good at intimidation. I have a proficiency in that, so.
for its active ability, they can use a bonus action to increase their sturdiness. For 10 minutes, you gain a +2 bonus to all ability checks and saving throws that use strength or constitution. So that's only ability checks that use strength or constitution, I believe.
It also saving throws that use strength and constitution.
Yes.
Which are strength and constitution.
Interesting. And that comes back on a short or long rest.
Right.
I think this is one of the weaker ones. Much more than fire. Not that we need to rank them specifically, but this one I'm not a huge fan of.
It could be okay for a grapple build, but with a bunch of the maneuvers now that are good for grappling, I'd rather go Battlemaster. You would get plus to your athletics check for grappling, you'd get a +2 too.
Yeah, that's just not good
that's
enough.
That's not so good. No.
Takes a bonus action as well.
Yeah, and strength saving throws do not come up often.
And you're already good at them.
Does, but yeah, you already have proficiency in both of those.
Yeah, that's where I lose it. It's the two stats that I'm supposed to have a high amount in, so I don't really care if I get an additional +2.
Right. Nah, I'm with you. One of the weaker ones.
I guess, no, it doesn't increase the stat. If it increases the stat, that would have been more interesting, because then your health goes up.
It increases the two worst, the worst aspects of the stat increase you get. The best you don't.
Right. All of the things that would have affected your, I want to say spell save, but that's not the right. Just your save would have been helpful, but it doesn't increase your save. It could have been a setup one, but nah. Next is the Stone Rune. So the passive on this is advantage on insight checks and you have dark vision out to a range of 120 feet. Probably one of the better ones here.
Yes, in terms of the passives, this might be one where it's worth it for the passive. Especially if you... I mean, so many races do have dark vision, and then especially with the customization racial options, you could also just kind of give your thing dark vision, your character.
This is plus 60, though. So.
Yeah, most don't have out to 120.
Yeah, and then if you are playing like a human who doesn't have dark vision, here you go. You
right.
just always have it on you out to 120 feet. The advantage on insight checks is usually nice. That's a skill. At least in our group, we use insight checks a lot.
Yeah, so definitely good passive. The active is when a creature you can see ends its turn within 30 feet of you. You can use your reaction to invoke the rune and force the creature to make a wisdom saving throw. Unless the save succeeds, the creature is charmed by you for 1 minute. While charmed in this way, the creature has a speed of 0 and is incapacitated, descending into a dreamy stupor. It then repeats the saving throw at the end of each of its turns, ending, of course, on ending the effect on a success. Once again, comes back on a short or long rest.
It's, again, repeat the save every time always kind of really lowers the usefulness. I would say that effect is better than being restrained. I don't know why the fire rune is our default now compared to, but
there's the most discussion around, or the most hemming and hawing.
Right. What's interesting about this is it sounds like you could do this on somebody and other players can attack it. Like usually when it comes to somebody's like incapacitated or charmed, it's like damage ends the effect.
Right.
Or it immediately causes another save. Regardless, you can just beat the crap out of this person while they're asleep.
Yep. Yeah, only thing stopping it is when it comes to their turn and they get to try again. So I'd put it on par with the fire rune, but the passive is better.
Mm-hmm.
So if we did have to rank them, so far I'm at frost at the bottom, then fire, then stone. Cloud's at the top right now.
Right.
But we have 2 more to go. Aren't you excited?
Yeah, but it's not fair to rank these other 2, though, because you don't get them till 7th level or higher.
Yeah.
And we don't rank.
We just don't. We just don't rank. Can't even give opinions in any form of order of I like this better than this one. Because that's nearing ranking. It's getting close to it.
It's too close, man.
So Hill Rune.
If you use the term S tier, I'm quitting. There's just...
Wait, say that again?
If you use the term S tier in any situation on this podcast, I'm just quitting. We're done.
It's Sky Blue tier.
That does not translate as well out of the written guides to podcast form.
No, it doesn't. And the purpose of it, the whole point is you can quickly see the color. Right. Yeah. Anyways, Hill Rune is a 7th level rune. You need to be 7th level or higher in order to take it. So the passive is that you have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned and resistance against poison damage, which is pretty good.
Right. Like if you're a dwarf, it's worthless because you get that anyways. But otherwise, that's like it's obviously situational, but
still pretty good.
It does come up. Like I know as a dwarf, like I've played a handful of dwarves. There's been plenty of times throughout a campaign where that has come up. So
right. And I'll still say that all of these passives are pretty situational, and that's okay. Yeah. They don't need to be the reason you choose it. Even dark vision is situational. It's just a situation that comes up a lot.
Right.
Combat is situational.
I was going to say, taking the attack action is situational.
Sometimes every single campaign is just a picnic. None of these things help except maybe animal handling. To pet the dog. I
don't know. Zero conflict campaign when. Alright, so the active ability is pretty darn good. You invoke the rune as a bonus action, gaining resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage for 1 minute. And that does ignore whether or not it's magical. It's just all bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing.
Right. And that's great. It's obviously kind of borrowing from the barbarian which they get right away at first level with Raging. But you're a fighter, you have all this other crap you could do. So in that sort of sense, I think this will come up a ton. It's also situational, obviously.
Yeah. What if
There's obviously a threshold of situationalness where it's deemed situational versus not.
What if I'm fighting a fire elemental? Wouldn't want it then, would I?
No, you would not.
But if you're attacked by bees at the picnic, you are resistant to their poison and their piercing.
Really good to have on hand if you've got a swarm keeper in the party.
Mm-hmm.
All right, last one is the Storm Rune. So the passive for this, you have advantage on Arcana checks, and you can't be surprised as long as you aren't incapacitated. Not my favorite passive, to be honest.
I would say I like that. I mean, the Arcana is obviously, whatever, it fits in with a character concept or not, but not being able to be surprised, I like that a lot. We don't use surprise a whole bunch in our games.
Does anyone?
But I imagine there's got to be.
I haven't checked, but I'm sure it will support my idea.
I mean, how do I check that?
I don't know.
I know, right?
Actually, I know how. I will ask people on the internet and see what they tell me, so that at least gets our limited sample size of followers and whatever. So leave that in the comments. There we go. Do you use surprise? How often do you use it?
Right.
But yeah, in our games, it doesn't come up that much. And when I do make you guys surprised, you're all kind of dicks about it.
Yeah, it's kind of super annoying. That's why we avoid
it. Anything that takes away player agency for an entire round is pretty rough. Not having that taken away would make you feel pretty awesome. I believe the alert feature also makes you unable to be surprised. So if you have that, this is pointless.
I think barbarians get one too.
Yeah, as long as they rage the very first turn, or the very first thing, then they can't be surprised.
Like yeah. Or it's something to boost to initiative. We might just be making stuff up at this point.
No.
Yeah, that's what I do most of the episodes.
Yeah. I know that one. I don't remember what the feature's called, but it's that specifically, is if you rage very first thing, you can't be, or you won't be surprised.
Right. I think feral instincts. That sounds right.
That does sound right, because it sounds very feral and instinctual.
Yeah.
Anyway, so its active ability is, as a bonus action, you enter into a prophetic state for 1 minute or until you're incapacitated. Until the state ends, when you or another creature you can see within 60 feet of you makes an attack roll, saving throw, or an ability check, you can use your reaction to cause the roll to have advantage or disadvantage. Once you do this, comes back on a short or long rest.
Which is obviously amazing. I mean, that I think beats all of them. Cloud Rune's close, but I mean, once you hit 7th level in this, I don't know why you wouldn't pick this one unless you have really, really specific character concept in mind.
Yeah, I'm not going to say that like I'm trying to rank them. I'm not, but like if it was on a scale of 1 to 6, I'd probably put this one at 1 or 2.
Yeah, I'm not either, but this is an A+. Cloud probably closer to an A. Not ranking it. No, we're not ranking it.
We're not actually ranking them.
Fire Rune probably is C-.
But if we were,
yes,
it's just
we're treading on inside
solid
joke
use of
territory here in
everything.
our podcast.
What was that, Kevin?
We're treading on inside joke territory in our podcast, which is kind of a no-no. So basically, when we first started this, there was talk about should we be ranking our multi-classes and things like that, and I was very strongly, adamantly against it. And there was like this big back and forth and everything. So it's just kind of become this running joke about like how much I hate ranking of any concept. So that's what we're going on about here. And then it concept brought up again because someone mentioned in a Reddit comment.
Yeah,
about ranking things or something. That's why it kind of got re-brought up.
So I apologize.
That's where all this is
whoever asked us to rank something, we can't because Kevin does not want us to.
It's so situational. It's D&D. Whatever.
I know. I do like your stance of you hate ranking things. Like, this goes way beyond Dungeons and Dragons. You're just like, I can't stand it. I'll look up just best food in an area, and I see top 10 lists, and I'm out. I can't do that.
You have to consider every restaurant equally.
What if I'm craving Chinese food?
But this is obviously the best one.
Yes, it is. I mean, especially because you don't just have to pick one. Like, I would be floored if someone made one of these Rune Knights and just skipped Storm Rune.
Yeah.
I mean,
you just won't.
Yeah, you activate it as a bonus action, and then for a minute could apply advantage or disadvantage once per round. Like,
it's just good. Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing.
That's not situational.
There's so much use for that. Any big fight that comes up, you can do this once per short rest. Yeah. It's pretty great.
Yeah. And Frost Rune goes to the bottom of my list.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's all of the runes, which I think makes up a lot of the class.
Right.
Because we're still only at 3rd level, and really at 3rd level, you're only picking 2 of those, but yeah, it's important to get through those.
Yeah, I was going to say, for like multiclassing a 3-level fighter dip and picking Rune Knight, I mean, that's an amazing dip.
Yeah. Yeah, even just for the Cloud Rune. And maybe Stone.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Cloud, Rune. Yeah, whatever.
Whatever else.
Cloud, and then whatever fits flavor-wise. And then you get all the other fighter stuff, all the fighting styles, starting to get heavy armor, action surge.
Yeah, that does sound great. I want to do that.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so also at 3rd level, because just doesn't stop rolling. Yeah. You get Giant's Mite. So this really does contend as one of the best 3-level dips.
Mm-hmm.
But you get, as a bonus action, you can gain the following benefits for 1 minute. If you are smaller than large, you become large along with anything you are wearing. If you lack the room to become large, your size doesn't change. You have advantage on strength checks and strength saving throws. And once on each of your turns, one of your attacks with a weapon or unarmed strike can deal an extra 1d6 damage to a target on a hit. And you can use this feature a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. This does not come back on a short rest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I honestly, just the last bullet point, 1d6 per turn. For like essentially free. This is not hog any other resources or anything. In addition to all of those runes you get.
Yep.
And
I think it's
your giant language skill.
And
showing your now giant stature.
Right.
I do not get the implication. I kind of get the implication for the first bullet point, if you are smaller than large. This is just to prevent you from double enlarging?
No, you can. If you're already large and then you cast enlargement on yourself, you can become huge.
So is that so that you have to do...
And later on, when you can become huge instead of large, you can cast enlarge on yourself, and I believe you become gargantuan.
Oh boy.
Yeah. It's kind of dumb.
But yeah, like any of the benefits you usually get of that, faster movement speed and reach and stuff, doesn't...
You get reach. When you become huge, you get reach. But everything else, you're right. It's not really that big of a deal, but it's cool.
It's good. Yeah, I see 2 big things for it. It gives you you impact more squares on the battlefield if you're like playing on a grid, because now you take up 4 squares instead of 1, and so you have more within 5 feet of you. So in effect, it does kind of actually already increase your reach,
right?
Because you're just impacting more. And then for grappling, you can now grapple huge, because you could grapple 1 size category up, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so now you could grapple up to huge, which
And
if
you
you're
have
doing a
advantage
grapple build, yep. Yeah, because of the advantage on. Yeah, so this is another good contender for a grapple build.
And if you go all out, then you can grapple Tiamat. If you have enlarged cast on you when you're already huge,
right,
just gargantuan against gargantuan, wrestle Tiamat, do 1d4 damage every round with that fighting style.
Yeah. Actually, you could just do that from huge, right? It goes large, huge, gargantuan. Yeah, there's a colossal in there. Isn't there?
I don't know. I don't have my
I
DM
think
screen
there's
around.
another- Yeah, yeah. Either way.
There's one
yeah.
that's just everything else for size category.
That's gargantuan. That's the biggest.
Yeah.
Like the Tarrasque is gargantuan.
Can't remember.
Gargantuan is, I think, the max one.
Huge.
Yeah, that's what I was just saying.
Huge. Gargantuan. Yep. Tiny, small. Nope.
So there's no colossal. That was made up.
You just made it up.
Way to go, Kevin. Liar. Take off a point. We're ranking you now, Kevin.
Yeah. Well, I was at infinite points, so I'm infinite -1. So
I forgot that editing gives you so many points.
It's like a broken system or something.
So this is a fantastic ability. And again, a 3-level dip into this class is really going to mess up multi-classing with fighters.
Yep. It's such a good dip.
And I'm okay with that because it's really cool.
And there's like nothing you get here that's gonna like the ability will like fall behind because you're not in that class. It doesn't like grow with you or anything.
Unless you pick something that needs saving throws and you're not able to increase Constitution anymore.
Sure. Yeah.
Because if you do multi-class, no multi-class takes Constitution. That's going to be a skill that's going to lag behind.
Right.
So stuff like any of your saves, the Fire Rune and the Stone Rune, are going to be worse options. All right, so next is at 7th level, Runic Shield. You learn to invoke your rune magic to protect your allies. When another creature you can see within 60 feet of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to force the attacker to re-roll the d20 and use the new roll. And you can use this number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, comes back on a long rest.
Again, another amazing ability. It does not hog any resources. It's not a competition. It's just a thing you could do a bunch of times per day.
Yeah.
And it's great. I'm sure you will use all of those uses.
Unless you forget about it, which when we had
sure.
the Rune Knight at our table for a single session, it was forgotten basically every single round. But we also started at level 12. So hard to remember all of your abilities.
Right.
I don't really get where it comes from in the sense that like flavor-wise,
yeah.
It's just
another one of those.
It's in line mechanically with some of these other ones, specifically the Cloud, as we've already talked about. And I guess the Storm Rune. Whatever. You just change stuff.
Right. So does a Storm Rune require reaction as well?
Yes.
Not Storm, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bonus action to go into the state and then a reaction to use it.
Okay, so you couldn't do both of these. You couldn't give them make them re-roll the d20 and give them disadvantage on that re-roll or something.
No, luckily.
That'd be pretty, yeah. Either way, it's still really great.
But you could go one level into Wizard and go and get your Portent dice and make them re-roll those.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or not re-roll, I guess just give them the negative one.
Right. I would say you could just do that anyways.
Yeah. I know. I was just trying to think of a reason to give them Portent dice.
Okay.
All right. 10th level is Great Stature. The magic of your runes permanently alters you. When you gain this feature, roll 3d4. You grow a number of inches in height equal to the roll. Moreover, the extra damage you deal with your Giant's Might feature increases from 1d6 to 1d8 per turn.
Yes, this is probably their weakest. Which, I mean, a lot of other fighters' 10th level is decent. This one's not, but everything else is so good, I'm okay with that balance. Like, the first bit is just a ribbon ability. Like, it does not increase your size category, even if it makes you, 8 feet tall or whatever.
But it's awesome, because you can be, a 5 foot tall dwarf, and you'd look so weird.
Yep. The Giant Mites feature, that's the other 3rd level ability, bumping up to 1d6 to 1d8 is it's fine. Like, it's
just keeping it in line.
Crazy. Yeah.
Just totally unrelated. Just if I had a character or player who got this ability, I'd probably just let them tell me how tall they get. I'm not going to make him roll, because I just can't imagine how saddened you'd be if you finally got to level 10 and you were like really excited about this height growth and you just got 3 inches. And everyone's like, oh, you're taller? Didn't even notice. I'd rather it just be just overnight. You just, I grew a foot. Right. Awesome. That's so weird, but great.
Yeah.
All right, 15th level is Master of Runes, and this is where the class it's done. It's amazing now. You can invoke each rune you know from your Rune Carver feature twice rather than once. You regain all expended uses when you finish a short or long rest. All of these amazing abilities, do them again.
Yep. Yeah, twice per short rest. Like that cloud rune where you can redirect an attack twice per short rest now. That's nuts. That's insane.
I'm stunned. I have nothing else to say just beyond that.
Yeah.
So good.
You might struggle to use all 10 of your rune features.
You might. You honestly might. You might have too many rune features at that point. All right, last one is Runic Juggernaut. You learn how to amplify your rune power transformation. As a result, the extra damage you deal with Giant's Mite feature increases to 1d10. Moreover, when you use that feature, your size can increase to huge. While you are that size, your reach increases by 5 feet. I like that it says can increase to huge, because you could also just be large if you wanted to. I don't know why you would.
Yeah. Who would do that?
If you don't have the space.
Yeah, if you're indoors.
That's why. Yeah.
Make the space.
I bust through the ceiling as I go up.
And then the reach increasing by 5 feet. Of course, nice.
Yeah.
And another sense is kind of doubling that reach, because again, you're now covering 8 squares instead of 1 to 4, then 8, which is more space that you can interact with.
Yeah, you're basically locking down the entire battlefield.
Right. Yeah, I was gonna say this subclass taking the Sentinel feat would probably be really solid.
And Polearm Master. Take them both. You don't move unless I say you do. Or if my reaction's been used. And believe me, it has been.
Completely.
I was going to say, yeah, they do actually have a lot of competition for the reaction, so maybe not. Yeah, all in all, we've been saying it throughout. I mean, this is an amazing subclass. I would go as far to... I'm always really reluctant to use the term overpowered, but this is damn close, if not there. Like, I think you are going to be overshadowing other martial characters, and especially a lot of other fighter subclasses, which just always feels a little shitty.
Well, I'll say it's really strong. It's a little bit overpowered, but it's not broken. Like, Echo Knight also falls into that category, and there was some stuff I was seeing with Echo Knight where it was straight up broken. Talking about you can basically have a fly speed and do all these crazy things and have, like, this absurd amount of movement. I think Treant Monk actually has a video basically on how to exploit the Echo Knight and why it's his new favorite class. And I was like, okay, so nobody's allowed to watch that. So it's really strong. There's a lot of good stuff. At least, I don't know, I'm not seeing anything that it's like, oh, that can be exploited.
Yeah, no, it's a very straightforward class, which is, it lends itself to being not totally broken because it is very, very simple.
Yeah. And on the bright side, all of these active abilities usually end if you get incapacitated. So as a DM, if you don't want them to use these abilities anymore, you can just knock them out. they can't do it. It ends.
Oh, you're actually fighting a guy with a stone ruin. Oh, sorry, bud. Incapacitated 1 minute.
There are other ways to incapacitate. Not a ton, but incapacitated doesn't mean unconscious specifically. It's also a way to deal with people who are annoying you, who are concentrating on stuff. You just incapacitate them for a round, and concentration's broken. Which I should have kept in mind with that crazy warlock build you had the other week, Kevin. Able to concentrate on everything, incapacitate him for 1 round, he's done.
I don't remember this.
What are you talking about?
What warlock build where you could concentrate on everything?
Not on everything, just always hold concentration. Literally the last character you played, whose entire thing was like, he needed to roll a 1 And even then, he still might not fail his concentration save.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because I gave myself proficiency and advantage on con saves. Yeah.
Always great.
Yep. It was just Hex. I mean, that's all I ever had.
It's always just Hex.
Anyways, yeah, Rune Knight, in terms of like multi-classing, I mean, anything that you would like dip into fighter, get a bit of martial with, this would be great. The other way, like multi-classing out of Rune Knight, I almost see like never wanting to do that because they just keep getting better.
Yeah. You're not going to gain anything from other classes. Just stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
And that's overstating it. I mean, yes, going Paladin is still going to be good if you want smiting and other Paladin things, but it's not necessary. You're not going to feel like with Eldritch Knight, where at level 7, everyone's like, I kind of got everything I need out of this, or maybe 8. Like, I'm going to dip out of here. You don't want to do that with Rune Knight.
No.
You want to get huge. This would have been so good for the Swole Coast.
It would have. Yeah, all in all, I am a big fan of all of the fighter changes in Tasha's.
Yeah, same here. I think this, unlike the Sorcerer, where I was a little bit disappointed with each, like Clockwork, but whatever, I just think these are both really solid classes.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing that they added, and I don't even know how much or at all if we want to talk about these, are just some Battlemaster builds. They basically are laying out what you should take for your fighter if you're trying to make a specific niche, which is pretty cool. They have a lot of options. You know, you can make a pugilist or a skirmisher or a hoplite, all these things that they just kind of give you. Say, hey, take all of these things. And we've gotten rid of all of the thinking. Not in a bad way. It's not a negative.
Good inspiration, good flavor. It would be really good for new players.
Yeah.
Who they think like, I want to make a pugilist. And instead of having to go through and sort of figure it out themselves and like suss out between all of these options, it's just like, all right, I'm just going to follow this. It's my first character.
Right.
That's fine.
I think as a new character, you'd have a really hard time coming to the table with that concept. You might say, I want to be a pugilist. And that's like where you are starting as a new player. And it lets the DM almost point them in that direction and say, okay, here's an option. Or even just, hey, you want to play a fighter? Here are some cool options. So that way you don't end up as a champion fighter and say, this is really boring.
Right.
Like, which of these sounds cool? You want to be a duelist? Great, let's go with this, and point you in that direction.
Right. That's actually a really good point, because I was going to say, how many new players do you think would have Tasha's? Probably not many.
Many, no.
Yeah, they just have the player handbook, and so that's kind of defeats it. But yeah, the DM kind of pointing them to it. You know, it's an experienced DM with a new player, and yeah.
But not going to talk about them. I don't really see the point in it.
It's just inspiration, decent flavor. Just kind of help you out.
All right. That's it for this episode.
Yeah. You should do your promotional thing.
I could. Or, no, I'll do it. That's fine. So if you're not yet, make sure to subscribe to us wherever you can. YouTube, your favorite podcast app, or whatever else. Follow us on Reddit. No, follow us on Twitter. There we go. At Monsters_Multi. Subscribe to us on Reddit. Just our Monsters and Multiclass. And since this is a video, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll give you a bunch of good prompts for comments, so I do want to see some answers to those. I'll have to go back and listen to them. I don't remember what they are. It's been like 20 minutes.
Ring the bell.
Ring the bell. Oh, I forgot about
I always got to ring the bell.
Thank you, Will.
Cool. All right, and with that, thanks for watching.